Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? All right, I'm going to try to get back to doing videos a little bit more regularly. We've been doing a little bit more research on other subject matters, also as well as lining up some really good interviews that I think you guys will look forward to. One of them is a follow-up with Dr. Peter McCullough. For those of you who don't know who he is, he was a doctor that went on the Joe Rogan show, and they both smashed the internet. There was millions upon millions of views, and then it got censored, and it was removed, and it was a big what to do. But just look him up, Dr. Peter McCullough. We will be doing a follow-up interview with him. He has a new book coming out, as well as a new medical group that he's working with. And we'll just get his opinion on what has happened since the last time we spoke to him, and, of course, all these new variants that keep popping up, and get his opinion on that. And for those of you who've been paying attention, you know I've been looking into, believe it or not, worm farming and growing, I guess they're called microgreens. It's a type of food that you can grow, and it's got a quick turnaround. The reason why I'm looking into worm farming and microgreens to just try to create another source of income. Now, I've mentioned it before in other videos, and it was amazing how many people know a lot about worms, believe it or not, as well as microgreens. So I want to learn a little bit more before I speak to you about it, because it might be something you can consider as an alternative form of revenue. So we've been doing our own research on that, and so that I can bring it to you with a lot more knowledge than I have. It's just not a matter of getting some worms and throwing it in dirt like most people think. There's a lot more to it. But anyways, just get back to Iraq. There's a couple things I want to do. There's really not a lot going on in the news, but I do want to come back and respond as well to some of your comments from previous videos, so that we can get some things squared away. There's misunderstandings in some areas and lacking information in others, okay? Before we get started, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. If you are not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, now's the time to go to our friends over there at Money Metals Exchange. The link is down below in the description. If you're a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and you will get a free half ounce of silver. So one of the reasons why I haven't done a video on Iraq in the last couple of days is just because not a lot's changed. Basically, what the news is about is just the government being formed. That's it for the most part. And nothing else really exciting stands out anyways. So I'm continuing to monitor this. If anything really stands out or jumps out, I'll let you know. We know right now that Al Sundin is putting his candidates forward, and they'll be voted on here shortly. That's where we are. So let's get back to answering some of your comments underneath some of the videos in the past. What I like about this is it's an opportunity to interact with those who watch my videos. I don't always have a chance to do this, just because I usually don't got time. But when I do like to go back and respond to the comments. So the answer is, yeah, I definitely would love a rate of 322. You guys know the story. A viewer challenged me because she said, you always talk negative. It's not that I'm negative about the Iraqi Dinar. I'm just more realistic about it. These people talking about how they're just going to come out at, this rate or that rate. I mean, I've heard ridiculous ones up to $18 talking about you have to make up for inflation. I was like, are you serious, you guys? Really? That's not true. That's false. That information is false. That's not going to happen. There's a handful of things that you got to take in consideration before you can change the exchange rate, and I've done videos on those. But the challenge was, can I make an argument for a possible 322 rate? Well, at the time of the challenge, I just took in consideration who was fighting for control of the government, and I remember what Maliki had done in the past, and I thought, yeah, that's easy to do. I mean, all you have to do is think about the individual. If he grabs control of the government, is he capable of turning it to a 322 rate? Sure he is. Absolutely he is. Now, we all know that the government of Iraq can't change the rate. It has to be done by the central bank of Iraq. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean that Maliki as an individual won't select a representative for the central bank of Iraq that he favors or will listen to what he has to say. Even though the government might not have the power to directly change it themselves, Maliki as an individual might have the influence to make a change. The point I was trying to make is that there are rumors that Maliki and his family had swindled billions of dollars from the Iraqi. We know that Maliki owns a bank, and we know that they were using the currency auctions to do some real shady activities, and they were making millions of dollars per month off of this. So the guy has the ability and the power, as well as the influence, to put an individual in control of the central bank that he controls, that would do what he says. So the case I was making was more of a case that this man would do it only for his own personal gain and no other reason, because there's nothing out there that would justify a rate of 322. I don't want to hear these comparisons equate, because there's no comparisons. They're apples and oranges. People out there talking about how much oil is in Iraq. Again, very little to do with the exchange rate. And I know for decades you guys have been listening to people blow smoke up your butt, sprinkle a unicorn pixie dust on the money, and it'll just poof, and there it is. I mean, you got one guy claiming to have codes that he just pushes in, and then he releases the money. You really believe that? I mean, seriously, you really believe that? If that's the case, then what's the holdup? There's always an excuse why there's a holdup. The one thing about my channel that's different than others is I like to try to bring as much education as possible to what's going on with these different currencies. That doesn't mean people are going to agree with me. They don't like it. They don't want to hear the truth. They rather hear somebody just lie to them, lie to their face, and give them all kinds of false hopes. Can the Iraqi dinar reach an exchange rate of 322? Of course it could. But there's a lot of things that are going to have to take place in order for that rate change to actually happen. Again, I was just trying to make a case for how it could be 322. It would be based on corruption. It would crush the Iraqi economy. It would definitely be for selfish reasons and no other reasons. I'd stated over the last couple of years that I don't see the Iraqi dinar going up to one huge jump. It's not going to happen. As the economy recovers and their infrastructure starts to rebuild, you'll see it probably go up in smaller increments, not all at one time. So it is going to take some time. I know people don't want to hear that, but that's just the truth. It's a lot more truthful than they're just going to wake up one day and get the 322 rate and you run down there. Nah, that's not going to happen. $1.12 would be nice. So I've read some articles, and I had meeting notes from the Central Bank of Iraq. And in there was a lot of talks about the government at the time wanting to change the exchange rate to $1.12. As a matter of fact, I think they did it briefly, and then got in all kinds of trouble for doing it. But this was when Dr. Shabibi was in control of the central bank, and he was out of the country. And this is when Maliki was trying to consolidate all his power, and he was doing some real shicey stuff to try to steal the power away from other departments and consolidate it all under him. Like I said, he wanted to be the next Saddam Hussein, and that's one of the moves he made. When Shabibi was out of the country, the rate change was implemented. They blamed Shabibi, saying it was something fraudulent, and it didn't work out the way they wanted to. Obviously, Maliki wasn't able to consolidate the type of power at the time to really grab control of Iraq, but there's no doubt that he's going to go for it this time. Info seeker, there you are, bud. Hey, Pimpy, I have to totally disagree with your hypothetical about Maliki and the corrupt changing the exchange rate to 322. Foreign exchange has international implications, so no prime minister, director, or CBI can just change the rate to whatever they want to. No other country would do business with them at the rate, knowing it is 100% bogus. Countries know what the value of the dinar should be, so they would never exchange the dinar for 322 when the fact is it's worth 0.00068 period. Well, that's not all true. We know that the central banks are in charge of changing the rates for the countries. Whether other countries want to recognize it or not, that's up to them. But we know that this has been done. When Saddam Hussein was in power, the Iraqi dinar was less valuable than the Kuwait dinar. And when he invaded Kuwait, he tossed out their currency and forced them to use the Iraqi dinar, and then he changed the rate to the 322 rate. So we know they have the capability to do that, but you're right, it has international implications, there's no doubt about it. This is why I always talk about countries that manipulate their currencies. If you want to do trade on an international level, if you have a currency whose value is cheap, then most likely you're going to be able to sell your goods or export goods that are much cheaper than other countries. And that's why you see a lot of countries manipulate their currencies. China, Vietnam. Also, what you'll see is a lot of these globalist companies love to go into countries where they have devalued their currency so low so they can make products in these countries because the labor is cheap there. So the manipulation of a currency and the devaluation of a currency definitely has effect on the international level. So InfoSeeker is right in that area. But to say that they won't do business with them is not 100% accurate. You see, if they could do it one way and devalue it for the purpose of underselling everybody else and have an advantage over the international community because they can make products cheaper, if it can go one way, it can go the other way as well. So does it benefit Iraq to have a higher exchange rate? No, not right now. They have to rebuild. They have to rebuild their private sectors. They have to rebuild their public sectors. They have infrastructure. So increasing the rate too high will definitely affect the country because then they'll be forced to import goods more than they would export goods. So the cheaper currency gives them an advantage. But we also know cheaper currency affects the population disproportionately to poor people, and it creates more poverty. So as the economy strengthens, the infrastructure strengthens, stability is there, over time you can see them increasing the value of their currency. Now, a currency that has an increased value benefits Iraq if they're mostly importing because you want to have more purchasing power. So if they want to be big in exporting to the international community, then obviously a cheaper currency is what they want. If they are a country that does more importing than exporting, well, then a higher currency is what you want because you have more purchasing power. Thanks, Pimpy. You're very welcome. What will it be? Nobody knows. They can guess. That's all it is. You know, if they go in there and they do change the rate, there's no doubt that at the very least, they're going to change it back to the 1,190 dinars, which was the previous rate. And again, that's like a 22 or 27% increase in value. Now, I made this example before. From where the rate is right now, if it jumped up to a $3.22 rate, you're talking about a 4,000% increase in value. That's just, it's not going to happen. I'm not saying that it can't get to 322, but it's not going to happen instantaneously. A 4,000% increase in value of a currency overnight is unrealistic. No currency's ever jumped up that high that quick. So you're more likely to see it happen in increments. I don't want you guys to get discouraged. I'm not saying that it won't go up in value. I'm not saying that it'll never reach 322, but it's just not going to happen overnight. It'll be in a progressive manner. Now, with the declining of the US dollar and currencies crashing all around the world, so if we go back to the gold standard, then you're more likely to see all the currencies at a level playing field. Okay? So that's always a possibility. So we'll just keep an eye on that as time goes on. I'm glad to hear that you think it's about to happen because you're the most pessimistic person on the RV. You see, that's what everybody thinks. I've never said that it wasn't going to happen. And I'm not saying the 322 rate's coming. I was just trying to make a case. I was just accepting the challenge and making the case for the possibility of a 322 rate is solely based on Maliki himself, not because it's justifiable. But do I think it's going to happen at a 322 rate? No. Most likely the very first increase is going to be it restored to the old value. That's the first step, and then we'll see what happens from there. Oscar says, I don't care anymore who the hell's in power. At this point, I take Mickey Mouse. I heard you guys have been waiting for a long time. Government seat assumed, Maliki. See, Pimpy, I told you, just wait and see, sir. People are acting like I said it would never change. I never said that. I just said it's going to go up in increments. Sneaky Maliki, the dollar exchange rate is stable and there is no intention to change it. So what does it say, Robert? An authorized source in the Central Bank of Iraq stated today, Sunday, February 20th, 2022, that there are no intentions to change the current exchange rate, especially after the positive results it achieved during the past period, and that the discussions that took place while hosting the government of the Central Bank of Iraq and the Council of Representatives on Saturday. Okay, so I know what this article is. So if I remember correctly, they said they had no intentions on changing the exchange rate for 5 years, but that's back in February. We're now over here in October. So what has changed since February? The government. Their intentions were to stay with the white papers, do the reform. They had no intentions on changing the exchange rate for the next 5 years. That was the goal. But since then, Maliki and the coordinated framework have taken control, and they are building the government right now. So that whole waiting 5 years is definitely out the door. We know this because we've already seen articles recently, like within the past 2-3 weeks, where they already said they're going to change the exchange rate. So we know they're going to do it, and it ain't going to be 5 years from now. But yeah, I do remember the article. I remember it coming out, and I was thinking to myself, it made sense to me at the time, and people didn't like for me to say that. But the reasons why they said it was going to take 5 years, I thought they can do much quicker than 5 years, and I was anticipating that it would take more like 3 years instead of 5 years, and everybody lost their mind. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 like I always get. For the most part, it's because you people want me to lie to you. Oh, there's a magic wand. I'm going to pull out my butt, and presto, there goes the rate. No, that's a lie. All those people out there saying that are lying to you, okay? I'm just going to tell you that right now. So if you want to believe them, that's up to you. You don't even have to believe me. I understand. It's frustrating. People get mad. But that's why I try to do my best on this channel to bring the knowledge necessary for you to understand the process and the reality of things. If you want to go hear somebody talk about they got digits that they could put into some magical vault and presto, the money's there, or you want to hear somebody talk about back screens and 800 numbers and whatever out, tier 1, tier 2. Yeah, how's that working out? They've been saying the same thing now for 15, 16, 17 years. Info seekers, nice to see them so active again. Pimpy, finally you're starting to get it. You're absolutely right about the rate. If they do anything at all, they can't afford to get back to the 1190 or 1200 rate. There's no doubt about it. The 322 rate, there's really nothing out there that would justify that. Nothing whatsoever. And remember, the 322 rate that was there before, previously was just Saddam Hussein changing it on his own. He did this, again, when he invaded Kuwait, told them to get rid of their currency, start using Iraqi Dinar, and then he adopted their rate at the time. So yeah, I think the first step is like InfoSeeker's talking about. It's going to go to 1,190 dinars for every dollar. Right now, we're currently at 1,450 dinars for every dollar. What InfoSeeker is saying here is, the 322 rate, you got to remember, when I was first on the other YouTube channel at the time, they had, I think it was 50 trillion dinars were in circulation. And that's like 3 times that amount. Let's just take $1 trillion, a flat $1 trillion. Let's say the government only has 1 trillion Iraqi dinars out there. What InfoSeeker is trying to say is that 1 trillion, if you change it for 3.22 American dollars, they don't have $3 trillion to make this swap. But there is more to it than that. That's just oversimplifying it. I mean, there are a lot of other things to take in consideration, just other than just changing it like that. But it goes on to say this is mathematically impossible. Too many people simply do not understand how this stuff works. The current dinar has never been 322. That was the old Swiss dinar over 30 years ago. What you have now is a dinar worth 0.009. Yep, that's actually accurate. The new dinar that we have right now was not the dinar that was in use when the rate change took place. So that's definitely the case. Look, I say these things that people get pissy about them. Hey, I apologize for those people out there that continue to lie to you guys, and you guys continue to believe them. 15, 16 years they've been doing this stuff, lying to you over and over. This date, this rate. No, we don't do dates and rates. I accepted the challenge on the 322 rate only because of Maliki, not because the country had the ability to have the rate at the moment. They're just not structurally sound. They're not stable. And the government that's going back in power is very corrupt. We know they come a long ways. They're out of Chapter 7. In addition to that, they have, 90 billion in foreign reserve asset buildups. They have 132 tons of gold. So they're doing all the things necessary just to protect the currency, let alone increase the rate. So give it a little time. It'll happen as long as they continue down the right path. But I'm more concerned about the government that's going in. It's the same corrupt people that have been running Iraq since 2003, with the exception of when Al-Qademi was in office. So if you think it's going to change for the better, I think you got another thing coming. Look, I don't want to say the rate change is not going to change. It's going to. They've already made it clear as day they were going to change the rate. As a matter of fact, even Sauder, one of his campaign promises was to change the rate at least back to the old rate. So we more likely are going to see the rate change go back to 1,190 dinars to start with, and then over time slowly build back up. Let's have faith, Pimpy. So what if there is stolen dinar out there? This will help to recover their currencies. The old exchange rate, 322, would be sufficient for a start. We can hope. Yeah, no, look, don't get me wrong. It's not like I don't want a 322 rate. I mean, of course I do. Heck, I would love to see the $18 rate, but is that realistic? No, neither one of them are realistic at this moment. So it's not for having lack of faith. It's just being knowledgeable about how currencies work. Now, obviously, a lot of times when I'm speaking, I'm oversimplifying things, but it's more to make a point, because if I start to get into the weeds of things, people are going to get lost, and I don't want that to happen. I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. It says on here, okay, so be it if the dinar goes up in increments, will help a lot of people in Iraq. Yeah, it will, especially the poor people. They'd have more purchasing power. You make a lot of valid points. Thanks. You don't want to say, so what if there's a lot of stolen dinar out there, because it really depends on who it was that stole it. We know Maliki was, but we also know that ISIS was there too. And what you don't want is a terrorist group to have billions of Iraqi dinars, and then you change the rate, and now you just finance the terrorist group. So that's one of the concerns that was out there, finding the lost money. We also know that they destroyed a ton of it. What I really want to know is how much is in actual circulation. We know they kept track of how much money they took out of circulation and destroyed. I told a story about over here in a person in the army talking about when he was in Iraq, they used to have to sit there and guard the people as they were destroying the currency, which I thought was interesting, but nobody knows what the number is, not publicly anyways. So although it might say 150 trillion dinars have been created, how many of them are in actual circulation? How many of them have been destroyed? What we want to know is how many Iraqi dinars are in existence and who has them. I hope it's going to change to a high rate. We all do. I believe it when I see it. Always a great presentation. You are grounded. All we can do is speculate. Yeah, Mike, that's about it. It's all you could do. And trust me, these people out there telling you anything different, they're only lying to you. Nobody has no insider information. Dang, I remember when Jeff said he had an insider from Iraq. He didn't have no insider. He was just talking to some guy that was over there in the embassy, and he wanted to try to act like he had somebody big there. But this is what happens a lot in this YouTube sphere of the Iraqi dinar. Everybody's claiming to have some insider this, insider that. No, they don't. The value of the Iraqi dinar is fixed by the Iraqi government and does not change unless the central bank changes the exchange rate. This means that the government decrees the price for a sale and purchase of the currency. Yep, exactly. 100% up to the CBI. We'll just have to see how this plays out. If they continue on the road of corruption, nothing will change in Iraq. The people have protested and have died. No change in Iraq. The only way for Iraq to be free is for Iran to be out of it. Yes, Mike, exactly. That's the other issue that's big on this. I remember 2019, Iran seriously considering, after huge sanctions from Trump, to start using the Iraqi dinar is what they wanted to do. So they wanted to get rid of their own currency and start using the dinar because it had a lot more value. That was one thing they were thinking about. So the fact that Iran has their grubby hands in Iraq is not helpful at all, because they benefit from the corruption as well. Mike continues, it says, if these new leaders are associated with Maliki, he is an Iranian proxy. There will be no change. Iran has used Iraq for the last 22 years to fund its nuke project during the U.S. sanctions. It takes billions of dollars to make uranium weapon grade. How did Iran get the capability to do this without money? Had to come from somewhere. Yeah, Mike's right. That's exactly where it came from. They use Iraq as a funneling system. So you're right on point, Mike. But as far as the associates with Maliki, oh yeah, there's no doubt. He has a new crew mixed with old crew. So it's the same old corrupt people that's getting in there. Who says, is this Pimpy's new channel? Yes, ma'am. Couldn't find you on Fluff too. I love it. Thank you for joining me. As the American dollar is about to take a major crap too, interesting timing is everything, unfortunately. Yeah, it is, right? But, you have currencies out there that are pegged to the U.S. dollar. Right now, the U.S. dollar is considered strong for some strange reason. But there's no doubt, once it starts to crash, you're going to see a lot of currencies unpegged from the U.S. dollar. If indeed we get pushed into the gold standard, you're going to see more currencies on a level playing field. Right now, the U.S. dollar is being used to destroy currencies around the world. This way, when we do crash and we hit rock bottom, we're not going to be that far behind in the race, so to speak. So paying attention to what's going on around the world, paying attention to what's going on to different economies, paying attention to what's going on to ours, will affect the exchange rate. Pimpy is ready to piss on our plant. Love it. Iraq's being part of OPEC. America is going back to gold. HR 9157. Redeeming will be digitally done, in my opinion. So we wanted to go back to the gold standard. You're talking about Senator Mooney. He's a Republican. Wants us to go back to the gold standard. I think it was about a year ago or 9 months ago or so that Stephen Gleason from Money Metals Exchange brought this to my attention, that he originally made this proposal about a year ago. And now there's a push for it again. Here's the thing that gets me. You got to understand that the people that are controlling our government right now are not our friends. They're not pro-Americans. Sorry, but that's the truth. They're part of this globalist agenda. So gold is not good for them. I would love for them to go back to gold standard. Trump tried to put us there, and he was fought every step of the way. What that does, it restricts the power and the spending habits of the government. So we should go back to the gold standard. If we did that now, then we would have the dominant currency again and for a long time. But that's not going to happen. These people that are in control of this government, they are hell-bent on destroying this country from the inside out. That's been the plan all along. Lots to talk about, hopefully, what the president, newly elected in parliament, appointed prime minister that have the authority to make it go through. Good luck, and we'll all have an enjoyable Christmas. Well, it'd be nice if something happened by then, but we just don't know what the rate's going to be, if they do change it at all. And if people think it's going to be 322, let's be honest, if it was 322 rate, man, we would have one hell of a Christmas. Okay, so, but that's just not going to happen, you guys. I don't want to piss on your plant. Kipper says the rate change is going to come out of 5 cent mark. My word. 5 cents would be good for me. I'll take it. But how realistic is it? And there's a lot of things to take in consideration. Right now, what people should be paying attention to is the government being put into power. That's the one you should be paying attention to, because that's going to make a world of difference of what goes on. More yada yada yada. Yada 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 yada. Yep, yada yada yada. Got it. I will be glad when the movie is over with. Everyone will be happy when it is done. Are you talking about the clone one? The one that where everybody's a clone and we're all watching a movie? Is that the one you're talking about? Hopefully by January. I said it 10 years ago, and I'll say it again. Iraq with a stable government, ha ha ha. That's the thing, Jake. That's been the problem all along. You got the same group of people just circulating in power. One to be the prime minister, and another person would be the president, and another person would be minister of finance, and then they just switch. But the same group of people all stay in power. So if you have the same group of corrupt people still managing your government, and we know they're corrupt and nothing's changed for the better, then what can you anticipate in the future? The same bullcrap, unfortunately. One planet, one people. Where we go one, we go all. Absolutely. So again, I just want to make sure that we got an understanding, and that is this. The 322 rate that I was talking about, you had to pay attention to the video. Like the one person said that I'm pessimistic all the time. It's not that I'm pessimistic. I'm dealing more with reality about these things. And I'm not going to blow smoke up people's butt just so it makes everybody feel good and I get more views. If I wanted to do that, I'd have a million subscribers by now, That's not the case. I'm not going to lie to you. We've been hearing about how come nobody talks about the QFS system anymore? The difference between my channel and those other people's channels is I'm not going to sit here and just blow smoke up your butt. That's not going to happen. I'm just going to pay attention to the news and give you my opinion on where I think we're going and how far away from the reality of a major increase in Iraqi Dinar. I'm not saying it's not possible, but right now we got to take baby steps. If you haven't been walking for a long time, you can't just jump up on your feet and start running. You got to start by crawling. And we were well on our way over there in Iraq, well on our way. Under Al-Qademi, they were doing phenomenal. Great rebound from a government that was about to collapse. Great job in rebounding and doubling the amount of foreign reserve assets that he's holding. Great rebounding and doubling the amount of gold that they were holding. So Al-Qademi is doing all the right things, and it's unfortunately they're going to go after him. They really are. And they're going to throw him under the bus. They're going to make all kinds of false claims and go after this guy. And all he did is try to put Iraq back on the right track. Again, we just need to pay attention to the government, how it's formed, who's in it, and then just kick back and see what they do. I can tell you this, once this government is formed, we can pay attention to what Maliki's going to do when it comes to exchange rate fairly quick. Now, whether it's a big jump or not, nobody knows. Nobody knows. You just cross your finger and we'll see what happens. Anyways, that's it for now, you guys. Let me know what you guys think, and I will get at you later. I'm out.